Hey YouTubers, I'm Jacob. This is a how-to video for replacing the rotors and brake pads. This applies to the 78, 79 Bronco with the manually locking hubs. I've included links to all the products and tools I'm using in the description below, so make sure to click on those and check them out. And I'm posting weekly videos on my 79 Bronco and 2015 F150, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow along. All right, let's get into it.
I'm installing R1 Concepts drilled and slotted rotors along with their heavy-duty off-road and towing brake pads. I also purchased a worn premium hub rebuild kit since my hubs have been leaking grease. I also needed a spindle nut socket to remove the bearing nut from the spindle. Something I wish I purchased was new wheel studs because you'll need to pound them out in order to separate the rotor from the hub. For faster install, I would consider buying a pre-assembled hub and rotor. My Bronco is missing the hub retaining snap ring that you'll need a snap ring tool to remove. This is one reason why I purchased a hub rebuild kit.
So now we have the hub taken apart. It's time to take the brake caliper off.
Once the caliper is free, carefully pivot it off the mount and hang it to minimize pulling on the brake line. I'm using Night Eyes gear ties.
And get very careful when taking the spindle nut off. You don't slip and damage it. Alright, so now that we have the brake caliper and hub off, it's now time to knock the lugs off so we can separate them. I'm just using an old lug nut and I'm going to screw on a few threads.
If your wheel studs are rusted like mine, use PB Blaster penetrating catalyst to help get them free. It also helps to use a mini sledge or weighted hammer instead of damaging a dead blow like I did. Use a punch and hammer to drive the wheel studs into the rotor and hub. I'm using blue Loctite to keep them in place and have the hub sitting on a piece of wood to protect it. It's important to clean between the hub and rotor really well to get a tight fit. You do not want any play between the hub and rotor. If you can't drive them flush, place the assembly on the back side of the wheel that's off of the vehicle and tighten down the lugs to pull them tight.
I think these R1s are going to be a huge upgrade over those old rotors. Should make a big difference with stopping. Having the drilled and slotted, and these are pretty worn. All right, so the reason my hubs were spraying grease is because the ring is non-existent. And with these rebuild kits, you could get a new ring, a new lock nut and retaining ring. So, and also all new screws and hardware. I had several that were stripped out, missing, different sizes, so really nice to have this rather than just buying all new hubs. I just laid everything down in order, so I'm gonna go ahead and reverse that order. You wanna make sure that you have the dimple facing out on that. So now I'll torque this to 50 foot-pounds. All right, so it's really important, once you torque down the first nut on the bearing, you want to rotate it, and then it says to back it off 90 degrees. Okay. Now you see here there's this notch. You want to make sure it aligns on the axle spline when you install it.
The bearing nut may need to be rotated slightly to seat properly.
Torque down to 50 to 70 foot-pounds is the recommended torque. Install the hub. Make sure the gears line up right. So the snap ring should fit in this groove here, help retain this. I'm glad I bought this rebuild kit because the snap ring was not even in here. And I'll drop this in to retain the hub. Now you want to insert this gear. You want to make sure that the gears are facing to the inside. Alright, so that spring goes in first, and you just want to check and make sure that it can seat, which you can move in freely, so that's good. And with my rebuild kit, it came with all new screws, which is good. I had one missing and a couple of different sizes. You get at least 2 of them on there. That's moving really nice. Way better than it was. I'm going to have to compress my caliper in order to get the brakes back on. These older vehicles, it's going to overflow the master cylinder just because the chamber isn't that large. So we're going to need to drain it down so it doesn't just go squirting all over the vehicle and all over the place. I've got my midi vac pump set up here, and you're going to want them on vacuum. I have the canister right here that's going to receive the fluid. On the bottom of it, you'll want to put this shorter line so that it just directs the fluid down so that it doesn't pick it up on the return and get fluid into your vacuum pump. You don't want to get any brake fluid in your vacuum pump. It's not good for it. So just simply insert it there, tighten this on, other end on here. And I'm just going to drop this in the reservoir. Let's get this emptied out so I get my caliper back on. Really made short work of that. Okay, so now it's time to get the brake pads changed out. And it's best to just put the new pad in here. We're gonna go ahead and grease. Anti-rattle clip goes on the bottom.
Once compressed, insert the new outside brake pads and pivot the caliper into place. Because these new heavy-duty brake pads are so thick and these old calipers are quite worn, I'm having to use my dead blow to move the caliper into place.
All right, so when you're installing this piece here, you need to make sure you have the spring attached so that it keeps it retained. It also keeps the caliper from rubbing on the rotor where it shouldn't. And just kind of push it in and get it started. Usually you have to tap it in, but that worked. Usually, you know, you have to use like a punch or a drift, but that one is really easy. Okay, so I got it topped off. I'm not bleeding any of my lines. I didn't open any of the brake lines or calipers, so I only opened up the top here when I compressed it. All right, so now that we have everything buttoned up, it's time to fire it up and check the brakes, pump it a few times to make sure that they're actually engaging. And then I would just slowly put it in gear and just kind of let it roll. Don't hit the gas too hard, you know, trying to back out because, you know, if your brakes don't work, if for some reason you kinked a line or something, you can actually stop. So that's a good thing too. So just be aware of that. Be very careful when you take it for a test drive. You know, don't go down any huge hills or windy roads. Thank you for watching this how-to video for replacing the brake rotors and brake pads on a 79 Bronco. If you enjoyed it, smash down that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.